Sir, shall we start the session?
We'll wait for 5 minutes. 40
Vinny, we can start, no?
Depends upon you.
Yeah, because it is already 2:30. So should we wait for 5 minutes or?
We'll wait. There's around 100 participants are there.
Yes, sir. We will wait for then 5 minutes. Sir, shall we start the session?
Yeah, now we can see.
Good afternoon to all of you. On behalf of Hacknell Charities FCRIT Electrical Department, I welcome all to our session 6. It's my privilege to welcome and introduce our next speaker, Dr. Sushil Tale. He completed his PhD from Department of Electrical Engineering, IIT Bombay, in the field of microgrids in Power Electronics and Power Systems Group. He received the prestigious POSOCO Power System Award in 2016, instituted by Power System Operation Corporation and FITT IIT Delhi for his PhD thesis work. Before completing his PhD, he received Diploma in Electronics from VJTI, BE in Electrical Engineering from Sardar Patel College of Engineering, Mumbai, and ME in Control Systems from VJTI, Mumbai. He worked with Siemens Limited, Thane, before joining our college, Father C. Rodriguez Institute of Technology, as a lecturer in 1995, and currently working as Dean R&D and Professor in Department of Electrical Engineering. He received the National Level Teacher of the Year Award 2021 from Akademistan Foundation in Technology Group. He is founder and director of Navavidha Tech Solutions Private Limited, a startup which is actively engaged in the product development in the field of power electronics in various domains. He is currently chairman, Board of Studies in Electrical Engineering at University of Mumbai. He is on editorial board of IETE Journal of Research. He published 50 plus research papers in IEEE Transactions, journals, and IEEE conferences. He is a reviewer for IEEE Transaction on Smart Grid, on Power Electronics, on Industrial Electronics, on Industry Applications, etc. He has one Indian patent granted in his name. He is also working as technical consultant to several companies in solar PV, lighting industry, and electric vehicles. He is actively involved in product development activities for various industries, mainly focused in power electronics. He is also a certified energy auditor by Bureau of Energy Efficiency, Ministry of Power. Now I request Sushil sir to start the session on interface design, DSP, and power electronic systems. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Mini. Thanks for the introduction. I hope I am audible.
Yes, sir.
Clearly.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Is the PPT visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. So good afternoon to all of you, those who are attending this session. As it was introduced that I work with IIT Bombay, if I want to see the coincidence here, I actually started working in power electronics domain around 2006 onwards. In 2008, I joined Dr. Vivek Agarwal's lab, that is Applied Power Electronics Lab, Apple, what we call it. Okay, and as a part of the coursework, okay, we started working on power converter design, and my first power converter in my life which I designed was based on the Dr. L. Uman, whose lecture was there yesterday, based on his book Design of Magnetic Components. So I designed flyback converter based on the top switch, which is a closed loop system. And surprisingly, to see something coming from a theoretical concept, rather what is written in the textbook and which is actually implemented, was working for me. Right. So first attempt of creating a flyback converter, that was in closed loop form, was working to the level of design what was being planned for, and that was surprise for me. And that is where I started really working on the power electronics. It was always thought that what is there in the books, what is there in the text is not actually practically implementable. But after believing that what are the number of turns we are taken for the flyback transformers, the kind of closed loop feedback system we have created on that, and it gave us the perfect output voltage which was designed for. Okay. There I got a firm belief that yes, what is there in the text, what is written by really good authors and really good researchers, if you really take it very seriously about all the design aspect, you can design a practicable design. Okay, with those kind of experience, what I received in Apple Lab, the Power Electronics Lab of IIT Bombay, working with Dr. Vivek Agarwal, I was able to really come forward and start working for the industry. The subsequent time before my completion of PhD, I was able to work with Dr. Prajap Prabhakaran, then Dr. Sri Lakshmi, whose lecture I think you must have heard in the morning sessions, right? Also with Dr. Mini Rajan. So it was a group which has actually given us a boost of working with the confidence with power electronics components as well as the systems and the products. Okay, and just to share with you, even though I'm going to talk about the interface circuits and design consideration for that, okay, I was lucky enough to get an opportunity to work with something of 5 watt of capacity for the lighting application, okay, to the level of almost like a 200 kilowatt of converters used for the traction. So ranging from 5 watt to almost 200 kilowatt of designs, what I could get an exposure to, and to work on the design as well as testing and the validation of some of the designs for some of the clients. Okay, so that way experience goes on expanding for me, and luckily I was able to get good exposure from the various industries also. And based on that, I'm going to share some of the things with you. As it is always said, that we keep learning, and I'm still learning about power electronics. I'm not an expert in this particular domain. So there may be some mistakes in my presentation, but it is all the collection of information, collection of experience, what I got till now, and I'm going to share with you further. So if any mistakes you found, please indicate to me and try to correct myself on that. Okay. So we are going to discuss today is the design consideration for interface circuits, which are going to be used between DSP and a power electronic systems. Okay, and morning session DSP, introduction to DSP and the programming part of the DSP as discussed. I hope you must have got a sufficient awareness as well as knowledge about the DSP. Mainly from the TI perspective, I think you must have got the exposure to. Okay, taking a clue from Dr. L. Umanan's lecture, yesterday's lecture. Okay, I just taken this snapshot from his presentation, and I'm going to make use of this. Okay, so if you look into this picture, it is really good presentation of how I can see a real world power electronic systems. If you can see this, okay, you can see a plant, you can see a feedback systems which is existing along with the reference which is going to compare with that, apply to a controller, and controller output is going to be given to a controller. So where is that our interest will be? What is that we'll be referring to in our presentation today? So our role, my role in this particular presentation will be restricted to this portion, a digital world interface, analog world interface. Okay. So we are going to talk about digital world, analog world, control input, sense output, okay, feedback signals, all those things will be different. Okay, plant will not be necessarily touching, but wherever its reference is required, we'll be taking into account. We will also not be talking about control because that is basically a different word for itself. Okay, so let us talk about these keywords in principle. So keywords for us to take a cue from Dr. Umanan's presentation is the digital world, analog world, control input, feedback signals, and sense output. Okay, these things are going to connect the power electronic system, the plant, with the DSP, the controller or the processor, which is going to have your code into it and which is going to work on the controlling your plant in particular manner. Okay, so what is that we'll be deriving out of it? What keywords will lead us to? Okay, so let us see what is that. We'll be talking about interfacing the output of controller to the plant, that is the power electronic system. What is referred here is a control input, okay, is going to be interfaced with a gate drive. Okay, so what comes in between from the controller, okay, which goes as the output as a control input to this particular power electronic system, which will be interfaced through the gate drivers. Okay, What we are going to see, how my plant is functioning. Okay, what voltage, what currents, what power, what temperature, what all things are going to be observed, what is need to be monitored are going to be interfaced. Okay, so those are going to be interfaced with the current and voltage sensors in principle for electrical applications. Okay, in certain application like drives and all, we can also sense the speed. Okay, in some cases we sense the temperature. All those things will be there. Okay, so current sensors, voltage sensors, temperature sensors, speed sensor, torque sensors, and number of sensors can be there as a part of it, depending upon what application you are going to work. Naturally, once you have the sensors, we require signal processing circuits, which may comprise of filters or possibly amplifiers associated with that, attenuators. Okay, those are going to be the part of the signal processing circuits. When we are going to interface the power electronic system to a VSP, VSP is a digital world and plant is basically analog world. So when you are going to connect with each other, there has to be some kind of an status indicators. Status indicators, rather status update has to go from the power electronic system to DSP, DSP to power electronic system, so on. So in many cases, the GPIO interfaces are used, the general purpose IO system, the input-output systems interface pins which are used. And finally, to connect with the rest of the world, because your system may not be working isolatedly, or may not be able to work independently in standalone mode. It has to be getting connected to a remote operation, remote test, or remote monitoring systems, and so on. So requires for a communication course. Okay. So in brief, what we are talking about, a complete system, power electronic system with a DSP is going to be connected to each other through the various kinds of interface circuits, okay, which includes gate drivers, current voltage sensors, temperature sensors, speed sensor, torque sensors, signal processing circuits, which are essential for handling the various voltages derived from the various sensors to filter it out, amplify it, attenuate it, depending upon the kind of signal strength you have. Okay, and GPIO is for the general indicative purpose and driving purpose. We can use it for driving the relays, driving the contactors, so on. Communication ports for the rest of the world to be getting communicated and monitoring the complete system. Okay, with this as a background, let us start talking about how it makes a difference. Are these very crucial for us? Okay, what we understand, it's very difficult to design a power electronic system. This is what our concept used to be. When I studied my power electronics, I always used to fear how to select SCR, how to select the thyristor, what to do with the IGBT selection, MOSFET selection, so and so. Okay, we used to also work on the various topology, like for example, DC-DC converter, buck converter, boost converter, buck boost converter. Okay, there are n number of topologies are now available. There are various configurations, variations, I can say modifications which are being incorporated in basic converters which are being taught in the class. Okay, but when it comes to the control of this, okay, we had this in phobia in mind. Generally, this is what I also suffer through. That when it comes to controlling these devices, okay, it takes a lot of efforts to work on the controller like PI controllers, PID controllers, or PR controllers. There are a number of controllers which are right. How to work with them, how to deal with them, how to implement this control into my real world power electronic system. So these are going to be a challenging questions for us. So in overall picture, when I see a power electronic system, PE system, what I refer as a plant here, is a bigger task for me to design. Right from the 5 watt of a converter to a 200 kilowatt or possibly a 1 megawatt of converter design. Okay, it may be much difficult task for me out of this whole picture out of here. Right. At the same time, we also are afraid of handling the control aspect. When I say afraid, in the sense we are not comfortable right now, because there are challenges to tune up your controller, to select right controller, so and so. Okay, getting a perfect control system working for your PE system is not an easy task, but it is possible. It is doable things, right? So what comes in mind for me is that what this particular section where a digital world, analog world interfaces are going to play a part, are they important? Possibly it is all time it has been witnessed that they are neglected. We also neglected quite a bit of time that, yes, what is a big deal? I can simply take a standard interface circuits and use them in the practice and get my things working. I should be master in control system with the DSP, or I should master in power electronic system design, or I can be a master of both of them, but I need not to worry about interface. This is something which was generally been captured in most of the power electronics engineers, and I'm also one of the candidate out of it. Okay, but let us work it out. What makes a big difference when we neglect some minor thing out of whole story? Because we are taken care of the major things very rigorously, and we have put our efforts into it and got our things designed, fabricated. We are ready to now deliver it for the testing purpose, and we found there is a problem in my system. Okay, so let us look at this challenges right now, how we can go ahead. So let us take a picture at how these systems are going to be connected to each other. Okay, so I'm just presenting three sides. Interface circuits are going to be an intermediary between DSP and a PS. The PS stands for the power electronic system. So on the other one side, we'll be having the IGBTs, the terminations, the inductors, capacitors, contactors, so many other things will be there, right? So it is all power devices or electrical and power devices, right? On DSP side, we may have controller, possibly. DSP need not to be there every time, but it can be replaced by a microcontroller, or it can be replaced by a small, tiny PWM controller, so on, right? So left hand side, even though it is written DSP side, it is more like a soft side of the system, and PS side is basically hardware, which is basically talk about handling the power. And something which connects between the two is what is written at the center point, that interface circuit. Okay. So from DSP side, PWM signals are going to be generated, okay, through your control implementation of that, and it will be going to gate driver, and then gate driver appropriately connect that to the IGBT gate drivers. IGBT can be replaced by a MOSFET or any other similar device which can be used for the power electronic system. Okay. ADC systems are ADC inputs for the DSP will be received from the PS side. That means main terminal, I'll be observing voltage, current. As I said, that other than voltage and current, we also observe temperature, we also observe torque, we also observe the speed, so and so. So through appropriate signal processing circuits, either direct sensor output can be given, or it can be passed through signal processing circuit and can be given to the ADC inputs. Okay, so you are going to connect a PWM signals, which is the low voltage side, control side, through gate drivers to IGBT gate terminals. Remember that this PS side can be of megawatt capacity, whereas the DSP side may be working at 3.3 volt with a very low power requirement. Okay, they need to be appropriately isolated or safeguarded against this high power PS side. Similarly, when I take sample from the PS side for the current, voltage, torque, temperature, whatever it is, okay, when I process that data information, process that particular signal, it has to be appropriately passed through the signal processing circuit and sensor to the ADC. Okay, so connecting these two systems together, okay, it's required to be fairly good amount of care has to be taken forward, right? GPIOs pins are going to be connected to the various purpose for status control actuators. Okay, between the two, they are bidirectional. Okay, either I can take it as an input or I can give it as output. So care has to be taken while connecting them as a either input pin or output pin. Otherwise, they may get damaged when you connect the wrong input to a kind of a configured GPIO pin. Okay. Finally, communication is all important. They are going to be dealing with the interface circuit for the purpose of telling rest of the board. Remember that everything about the PS side has been indicated to your DSP side or the controller side, and then controller can tell about the PS side, that is power electronics converter, to the rest of the world, to the communication peripheral. Okay, there can be some communication interface available on PS side also directly, but these are limited to an extent. Okay, so let us work only on the communication peripherals which are going to talk to the rest of the world from DSP or the controllers. Okay, taking this as a complete picture to elaborate more about the importance of the interface circuit. Okay, let us take one example. Okay, so this is one example I have taken. There can be n number of examples, and just to give you a fair idea about how an ES side, when I'm going to work upon and I'm going to select some of the design, I can say the design parameters, and I can select the components based on that. How I'm going to deal with the actual implementation. So this is the real world problem. We have implemented this, and we have faced the problem on that. So I'm sharing this with you for the understanding point of view. So if you can see this, this was the problem statement given to us by Infineon. We have participated in Infineon Solar PV Challenge, Water Pump Controller Challenge, and we were one of the finalists in all the phases. Okay, we could not win this particular contest, but we were able to participate and we understood where are the problems we are facing in as far as our design circuits. So if you can see here, it's a very simple topology. It shows an solar PV panel connected to a boost converter. Okay, you can see it here. It's a standard boost converter with two switches we are connected together. So inherently it will be diode which will be conducting, and it will be followed by a three-phase inverter driving a three-phase induction motor pump. Okay, between the inverter leads and the three-phase induction motor, we have placed an LC filter for a better performance to be obtained from a three-phase induction motor. The specification are written here. Output of 10 kilowatt power rating, okay, with 360 volt as input from MPPT converter, and 650 volt is the output of boost converter, MPPT converter, which is here. Okay, output voltage of the inverter is supposed to be 400 volts.
Sorry, sir. Sorry. Sir,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you, but I think the left side of the picture is not, circuit is not clear, not visible to me.
Okay, is it the problem with everyone?
It is visible, meaning it is visible.
Okay, 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 sorry.
Is it okay?
The complete
Yeah,
circuit
it's
is
okay,
Yes, sir, it is okay.
Yeah.
Yes,
Complete
it
picture
is
is visible.
visible. It is visible.
Yes, sir, it is visible, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Okay,
Sorry,
so
sir,
these are
sorry.
no issue. These are the specification we have identified and worked with the 10 kilovolts of SVPW.
Now it is not shared, Sushil. It is not shared. Sharing is not there.
No, ma'am, it's shared.
I'm able to see this sharing.
Yeah, it is shared. It is shared.
No, it is
Sir, it's
clearly
shared.
visible.
Okay, okay.
It is okay, sir.
Just confirm. Now it is visible. The
Yes, sir.
inverter.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So if you look at the specification, 10 kilowatt, 360 volt, 60 volt is the boost converter output, 400 volt is the RMS output of the inverter, and 18.5 ampere is the current rating, 10 kilovolts SVPWM, and targeted efficiency of 95%. That means I have to design a boost converter, a three-phase inverter, and my LC filter. If I take all of them together, I should have 5% loss in the overall system. That is the desirable efficiency calculations which are expected to be done. Okay, selecting 10 kilowatts was our choice, and selecting SVPWM was the indicative reference given by the company. Okay, so we started with working with this, and what can be the first stage to go out for the design? What anybody can suggest? What should I do next to design this particular system? Where to start?
Component selection.
Yeah, I have to select a component, right? And for component selection, I can either just take a pen and pencil and calculator and start working on the calculation requirement as far as what can be the voltage trace, what can be the current requirement, what can be the losses, all those things I can do. Okay, but to an extent, the life of the researcher as well as the product developer is now quite been flexible now, because lots of tools are available online. Okay, so I'm going to use Semicron SemiCell platform just for the sake of completing this task very quickly. I hope you heard of the Semicron. Semicron is a German manufacturer. They have outlet and company in New Bombay, and most of the companies working in this domain use Semicron devices. They mainly manufacture the IGBTs, stack and modules, and most of the research institutes will have that stack. in the power electronics devices. We also started working in with their stack itself. Okay, so let me just take you a bit away from this presentation and let me just place. Okay, so this is the Semicron Semicell. Semicron is a German company, as I mentioned, and they got a Semicell simulation platform. So I already opened that. You can do Google search and then work with this. Okay, so I'm going to start Semicell. Okay. In order to sign up, I'm just starting it, and you can see that there are topology and circuits available. Lots of almost all the converters which are there in the our textbook, they are there. I'm going to do only inverted. Hello. 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 Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do. Hello. I can continue, right?
I muted all participants.
Okay. Just confirm whether I'm
I
on.
muted. You can start.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to
Yes,
only do
yes.
the design of inverter, not the boost converter for this particular exercise. Okay. So I have selected DC to AC converter, and that too also inverter 3-phase. Okay. I'm just selected inverter 3-phase. Only one system I'm designing here. So I'm already having something patched up here, 650 volt input voltage, 400 volt RMS. Here I'll modify. I require 18.5, which was there in my previous slide. Okay. This is with the slight overload I have taken into account. It is more than 10 kilowatt taken into account for the losses which will incur in the other systems also. I will take here to be 0.8, 50 hertz switching frequency to be 10 hertz. Okay. Now I'll just have map overloading capacity also designed 2 times of the my nominal loading. I'll just go for it. Minimum frequency I'll use 55 hertz. Okay, 362 is correct. 67. Right now you can neglect this. I'm just putting it for the sake of calculation. Okay, so what we have done is that input voltage 650 volt, output voltage 400 volts, 18.5 ampere output current, and 10.3 power output. Power factor 0.8, 50 hertz frequency, switching frequency 10 kilohertz, and I'll go for SVP. Right? Right now, only 3 switches will be there on the heatsink. That is what has been indicated. No additional losses are accounted here. And 2 times of overload factor. That means whatever the nominal current will be there, twice of that current can be taken as overload capacity, and that will have 60 seconds as the total capacity, total time period for which it has to sustain. So this is our basic input given to this design, right? I'll go for production. So now, as a part of the Semicell software, okay, they will suggest us some of these devices which are there manufactured by this company, right? So you can see that they got a Semitrans, Semix, Ministry. There are many varieties which are there. Cost-wise, they are different. Availability-wise, they are required to be checked out. We are very commonly using Semitrans device. So for this exercise, I am taking Semitrans, and that also SKM 100 GB 12T4. This is the device we are using. Okay, this is very commonly used in practice. Okay, this is the half bridge device. Okay, a module which is available, rated for 1200 volts VCs, and IC nominal is 100 ampere. Okay. After selecting this, I could have selected different things also. There are different combinations which are available. As of now, I'm selecting this. So I am going for cooling. That means heatsink selection. So you can see that a heatsink of a particular type with 3 switches of inverter are placed out here, and ambient temperature condition. Let us just take 45 degrees Celsius, because nowadays temperature in Maharashtra also we are able to see 42, 43, 45 degrees Celsius. Okay, I have option to select force air cooling or water cooling. We are going for force air cooling. Heatsink area is large. Okay, distance between the model is 5 mm. That means each one of the model, airflow is high, pin length. You can select them. You can select as per your actual condition. This is what we have selected that. Okay, I'm just going for the final calculation to see whether the design is going to be appropriate for my expectation to work upon. Okay. So now you can see here that here it is written, this configuration seems to be too powerful. That means 100 GB device may be more than what is required. Okay. I could have worked with the 75 GB also, 75 ampere device also, but let us just take this as a design for this. Why? Because we can see that my efficiency of the inverter is 98.28%. Okay, which is basically coming out of the 179 watt as the total losses in the inverter switches. There is no L and C to be taken into account. 98.28% of inverter efficiency and 98% of efficiency of the boost converter, and almost a 2% loss in inductor and capacitor, I could have achieved the targeted efficiency of 95%. Okay, and you can see that why they are saying too powerful, because temperature rise is hardly in the range of 65%, 65 degrees Celsius, both for transistor and the diode which is there in the model, right? So if this temperature rises for around 75, 80, 100, then they will say that this configuration is correct or the fine. Okay. In overload cycle also, you can see that temperature doesn't go beyond 85 degrees Celsius, and therefore this device can be used for the even for 12 kilowatt or 15 kilowatt capacity also. But right now I'm just sticking to this. Okay. So I can just take the printout of this, and I can have the data available. Okay. It takes only a few minutes for anyone to just get into this and work on the power circuit design and possibly verify that yes, that kind of a design is practically implemented. So this is the report which we get. Okay, everything what we did, and all the simulation factors, overload factors, everything we did, right? So this was the device which was being selected, right? This device we actually used and implemented the system in practice. So let us go back and see what happened. Okay. So this was the control state diagram we implemented with the boost converter, MPPT also we implemented, inverter closed loop control also we implemented, and this was the setup. Don't look at how messy it is, but it was a working setup for us. Okay. So it was having the inverter, boost converter, used the Semicon Skype 32R driver boost, and ES12 of TMS 320 F28 3790. Okay. So this is what we did, right? But let us understand what we face at that. So problem face in actual implementation of three-phase inverter. I'm just referring to three-phase inverter. When we carried out a load test at 10 kilohertz of switching frequency at 25% of loading roughly, it was a resistive loading which we did. Okay, we got 56% efficiency, only inverter with LC filter. Okay, without LC filter, we thought LC filter may be causing a trouble for us, so we removed LC filter, directly taken the output from inverter module and tried it out, check that condition also, and there we found an efficiency improvement of 2% at 25% loading. Similarly, we continue for 50% loading, we got 65% of efficiency as against without LC filter 68.4. Also, we witnessed that there was a very high temperature rise at 100%, therefore 100% loading was not carried out for us. So the summary of this particular exercise was, we observed that the efficiency of the inverter was significantly lower than what was predicted in the simulation. We use the same switch, we use the same heatsink, we use the Skype 32R which is manufactured by Semicon itself, and almost to an extent we mimic the whole system which was designed in simulation in actual practice, and at the same time, instead of 98 point plus efficiency, we got very poor efficiency of 65% also. Question is why? Okay, let me open up this discussion now. Question is why? What must have happened? Yes? Anyone? Okay, there's a question how the efficiency of the inverter is calculated. There are various means and mechanisms of calculating. What we did is that we have connected an power analyzer at the output of inverter, and we have connected input was given through a solar regulator, so we are able to see what a DC power was going through it. Okay, and DC power input was known to us, AC power output was available from the power analyzer. We are able to match it. RMS calculation we did not do explicitly for every aspect of it, but overall efficiency was correctly calculated. Yes, what could have gone wrong? 65%
Cooling
against
system design.
okay. Cooling, if you think of it, it can I can say support or help the switches to cool down and can have lesser power dissipation, but cannot take 30-35% of deviation from the efficiency. Anyone else?
Maybe parasitic elements are oversized.
Okay. When you say parasitic elements, means what? Which parasitic elements we are referring?
Sir, this filter element.
We remove the filter elements. You can see that in our study, we have taken out the filters. Okay, directly inverted DC link input voltage given to a module, that is a 3-leg module, and we have taken the output directly. So whatever the loss was occurring across the LC filter was taken out. Okay, just imagine that before we really come to this conclusion, what might have gone wrong. What kind of investigation we will like to do? How to debug this problem? So my next question is that how we can debug this problem? Okay.
Sir, first we took the first we measure the input power. After that, we measure the output power at the boost output power. Then at the last, we will see the output power at the motor end.
Let me clarify this. These details are given only for inverter, even though the boost converter was designed. We are just kept it off, and therefore we are talking about inverter. I could have shared the boost converter efficiency also with you, but only for this particular presentation, I have taken inverter input. Right? That means inverter will have switches. If I take out the LC components, if I feed the DC input directly to the inverter, what is the lossy component in the whole story? What are the lossy components? LC components are taken out. Input voltage directly given to the inverter DC link, and we are measuring the output of inverter. What are the lossy components in the picture?
Switches only then.
Switches only. What are the losses in switches?
I square RDS on.
Okay, that is conduction losses and
switching losses.
Switching and conduction
switching
losses.
Okay, so our problem statement is very simple. We got only one type of lossy component, that is switch or switches. Okay, and there are only two types of losses: conduction loss and switching loss. Okay. Now, suppose you want to debug this issue, what will you do? Conduction losses depend upon the loading effect, right? It's 25%, 50%, up to 100% if you go and so, right? The conduction losses will be proportional to that load. Switching losses?
Increase
So
the
can we
switching
use
frequency.
ZTS and ZTS?
Sorry, I could not get that.
Zero switching and zero switching can be used to reduce the switching losses.
Okay, so what we can do is that to verify whether the switching losses are really making that difference, we can try it out from reducing the frequency from 10 kilohertz down to even for the 500 hertz, right? It is possible to do that. Yes, I can simply take a DSP, code that for the say 2 kilohertz or 5 kilohertz or 8 kilohertz and test it. Okay, we had done this exercise and we have changed the frequency from 10 kilohertz down to 2 kilohertz. At 2 kilohertz, we got efficiency of roughly around, if I'm not wrong, 85% at 50% load. Okay, that means there was a loss which was happening because of the switching losses, which was significant, and that was indicated by reducing the frequency 2 kilohertz. But working at 2 kilohertz for a 10 kilohertz system is not a logical solution for us, right? So what was the problem? Switching frequency reduction is no logic to do that, right?
Hard switching.
Yeah, but then maximum time you'll find the hard switching only is the possible solution. There are very few systems which are soft switch. We could have gone for soft switching, but there are challenges in that. Hard switch converters are most easy to handle for us and product design. Okay. Okay. So let me just give you an overall picture. We felt that the power electronic system is at fault. Okay. We also looked at whether my DSP can, because it was not a closed loop system, it was simple driving of the SP PWM to this inverter, and we are getting this efficiency loss completely in the this exercise. Okay, changing the frequency from 10 kilohertz to 2 kilohertz indicated that there was a increase in the efficiency of the system, which is obvious for that. Okay, but that was not the way to solve the problem. The problem could have been different only. Okay, so what was that problem? Issue was with gate driver circuit. Okay, we rectified this problem. Okay, what could have been the problem with the gate driver? Can anyone tell me? I'm telling you right now that there is a problem with the gate driver circuit.
Sir, the circuit wasn't able to give that much amperes to control the switches.
Great. The gate driver circuit was not able to pump sufficient amount of current to charge the capacitor across gate emitter or so. That can be a good indicator for that. That's one. Good. So is it the wrong selection of a gate driver could have been there?
Maybe input output resistance is offered.
Input output resistance of gate driver circuit you are referring?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What is the input output resistance of gate driver?
Input generally we don't keep, but output we are having 10 ohms resistance, and there is.
Great. So gate driver circuit will have output side some current limiting resistor, which is referred as RGS on or RG on. Okay, and there is a turn off resistor, which is referred as RG off. Right, the gate in the gate circuit it will be there. Okay. So the fault is found appropriately that gate driver circuit was creating this problem. Okay. Now, how do you select a gate driver? We'll get into that, because just take this fact in this whole picture, that we worked well with the design. Semicron semi-save was supposed to give us 98% efficiency as expected, and hardware implementation could have come at least close to that, right? It was not the problem with the DSP, it was a problem with the interface circuit, which was a gate driver in this case. And in the gate driver circuit, it was the driving resistance RGS on, which was not appropriately selected. Okay, why it happened, what was the ignorance component from our side, and how we are able to rectify that, we'll discuss in the next few slides. Okay, so how do you select a gate driver circuit? What is there in the gate driver? So you can see that when I take a gate driver interface, I take an input pulse. I hope you are able to see the slides right now.
Yes, sir.
Okay, you can see this particular picture is basically taken from Infineon, and there's an input pin which has been connected from the DSP side. So left hand side will be connected to the DSP, and right hand side here there's a IGBT which is indicated. On the output side, you can see that there's one 10 ohms resistance, and there's one R3, that's 3.3 ohms resistance. Okay, there are various ways of connecting the output pin of a gate driver to an IGBT. There are variants which are available. Okay, these resistances are selected based on certain requirements. If you are not selecting this properly, you will have difficulty in getting the desirable result. Okay, in our case, the resistance was selected wrong. It was not our design. We have just taken available Skyper 32R boards from the market. We have picked up from there. We are connected in our system. Right. What we found that the onboard resistance for the RGS on was 47 ohms in parallel with another 47 ohms, counting to around 23.5 ohms as a resistance. We changed it to a suitable resistance less than 10 ohms based on our connectivity with the IGBT, and there we got an improvement in the efficiency up to 95.6%. Okay, a small change of interface component, okay, connecting DSP PWM output to an IGBT has made a change to go from 65% efficiency to 95% efficiency. Okay, So point here is very clear that we always focus on, I mean, it is going to be a part of everyone's, okay, that we always focus on something big and major, okay, but small thing like this get ignored, and we may get into the more difficult problem. Just imagine 35% of loss will require tremendous heat sinking requirement, and there will be a significant temperature rise, and your system can fail much earlier, right? Because we have a habit of using something off-the-shelf components, off-the-shelf subsystems we use in practice, and we don't really bother about what are their specifications are. They require to be appropriately calculated, right? Okay. So,
sir, I have one question, sir.
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Sir, there is no, sir, in this particular circuit, there is no requirement of any buffer circuit?
You are referring to DSP to IGBT. It is there, no? This is the this is an IC basically. Only the pinouts are shown. IC will have buffer to isolate the DSP side. Then it will have the isolation in between, the galvanic isolation, and it will have the driver on the output side. We'll see that in the next slides. We'll see that, right? Okay, so what you are able to see on the right hand side is the representation of an IGBT with a capacitance between all the terminals, right? What is needed that there should be sufficient amount of current which will be coming out of this out pin. Okay, if you are able to see this, you can see this, right? Out plus pin driving in 10 ohms resistance, okay, to the gate, and the gate emitter capacitor need to be charged. Okay, so what will happen that they will act like an RC charging in that case, right? It will be more like an RC charging for that, right? So let me just take the
sir, here we require two power supply for driving this IC. That is a 5 volt and.
Yes, we require that, right?
Okay.
And that is one of the major headache actually. Just to tell you.
Yes, sir. 5 volt is very common, sir, but that is that 15 volt is like.
Yeah, but then at the same time, it's not only one 5 volts which is required.
So we required isolated 5 volt supply for individual gate driver.
Every individual driver. Yes.
Okay.
So what I'm trying to tell you is that
cannot give the common one, na?
You cannot give common. Once you make it common, then that purpose is lost. So you have to have top switch separate supply, bottom switch separate supply, plus minus. So just imagine what can be the challenges in front of us. So these auxiliary systems, auxiliary circuits, interface circuits are much more difficult to design than the power circuit or DSP nowadays. Okay, I'm not saying this topic is important, but these are going to be an like we are talking about efforts required to be placed for doing these designs becomes much more higher than the regular main power circuit. Okay, so what my point here of discussion is that normal RC circuit, okay, now if I take the input pulse derived from the DSPs of this form, I should be able to reproduce it more like that only. So this is 0 to 3.3 volts, this is 0 to 15 volts. In some cases, for some drivers, it will be minus 8 volt to plus 15. That is the range we should be able to do. So this R and this C is of the IGBT. So C, G, E. Okay, it can be for the MOSFET, CGS will be there. So if you look into it, this particular wave shape should be written. So what you can do, simply take your gate driver circuit and connect it to the IGBT and see whether you are able to reproduce the waveform as it is. Otherwise, what will happen? Your expected waveform is supposed to be perfectly rising on this level, whereas in actual case, okay, it can be completely different. Like this. Slow charging means you are going to change the state from off state to on state for the longer time period, and in this period only, okay, the maximum amount of loss will take place, switching losses, and that was contributed to that 35% losses what we have faced in our exercise, right? So after tuning up this R appropriately by knowing the capacitance in actual practice with the parasitic components which are there for the wiring purpose and all, these have been counted, and then R was selected suitably, and then our problem got solved. Right? So this selection of driver circuit with the appropriate current pumping capacity and selection of this external R resistance, which will come in picture, need to be done very meticulously. Okay, otherwise your whole efforts will go wrong. Okay, we need to really see the rise time in a very sharp manner in this field. Okay, what we got finally is slightly slanted here. Okay, not perfectly gone up to final phase, but slanted over here in this one. If you start making that R to be very, very small, there is a large amount of power will be drained out of your driver circuit, and the driver circuit gets heated up much higher than any other component in your system. Okay. So let us look at there are too many other things also there in the gate driver circuit, which is like a Miller capacitance, Miller clamp, and other things. We will not get into that to make it simple. Okay, so let me just come back and again talk about our presentation here. So Miller capacitance is the one which gets coupled from collector to the gate, and whenever you go from onset to offset, there is a back coupling which happens on the gate side. Okay. So I'm just showing you some of the gate drivers which are there from some of the vendors. These are from the Semicron. So Semicrons basically are calling the gate drivers as Skyper devices. So this is the Skyper 32R device. Okay, the one on the right hand side is Skyper 42 LJR. Okay, this is the designation they are given. 32R actually stands for 3.2 watt of average power delivery to the gate. 3.2 watt of average power delivery to the gate. Okay, whereas 42 LJR stands for 4.2 watt of average power delivery to the gate. Right? They are not very large power, but still 3.2, 4.2 watt to be given to the gate. And if you've got multiple devices on your P system, naturally the auxiliary power requirement also significantly increases. Right? So this baseboard, this driver board, Skyper 32R is this one, and for that to be connected in your system, you require a baseboard, and this is the baseboard which adapts it. Finally, what we get is this form, right? And this is the form which is basically going to get input from DSP in this connector on the top one, and we are going to connect to the gate of IGBT on this side. The specification says that it can pump 15 ampere, 15 ampere, okay, to the gate to charge that capacity. This is the peak current capacity of that Semicron Skyper 32R. Okay. It is rated for 4000 volt isolation voltage. Okay, VC voltage can be 1700 volts, and therefore DC link voltage up to 1200 volts can be utilized for. That means any devices which is going to have maximum 1200 volt DC link voltage, this Skyper 32R can be utilized. The maximum frequency 50 kilohertz. Operating temperature is minus 40 to 85 degrees Celsius, and it can drive a gate charge of 2.5 microcoulombs. Okay, this is how it is being specified. For example, if you find any switch which is having more than 2.5 microcoulomb, this cannot be used for the driving that particular switch. As against, if I see Skyper 42 LJR, okay, it is rated for 25 ampere. Okay, rest of the things are similar, except the frequency is 100 kilohertz. It can work on 100 kilohertz frequency, switching frequency, and it can drive up to 20 microcoulomb capacitance of the IGBT. Okay, so I can use this for possibly for the parallel devices. Okay, but this will be restricted for a single IGBT to be driving at one shot. Okay, depending upon what is the overall gate charge which is available for the switch to be used. Okay, these are very standard. Why I showed this picture? Because these are very commonly seen in most of the research labs, very easily available off the shelf from any of the vendors locally available to us, and roughly costs around 1700 rupees a piece for Skyper 32R only. Roughly 500 to 600 rupees base code. So 2000 rupees plus is what the cost of each one of them, and each one of them can drive two switches, that is one leg model straight away, right? So this capacity of 25 ampere, 15 ampere, 1200 volt DC link voltage, 50 kilohertz, 100 kilohertz should be taken into account while we select this. Okay. These are not the only switches. These are not the only gate drivers which are available. Let us look at the other options which are available. Power integration is very popular company in the field of power electronics, especially in DC-DC converters. They are very popular. They also produce the concept scale to chipset gate drive, which is also commonly available, which is also reliable. And these are suitable up to 12 volts IGBTs up to 37 kilowatt to 110 kilowatt power. That means they are suitable for IGBT switches which can handle that kind of power range in the actual application. Infineon has got a larger range of gate drivers, very large range. Okay, this is only one. I can say the experimental board they are making it available to us, and this is two EDS series actually. There is a EDI series, two EDI series, one EDI series which is available. And if you compare the cost wise, they are still affordable compared to the any other manufacturer. And varieties also are available to us for use. Okay. Luckily, we use this Infineon also chipsets for our product design, as well as the Scalper 32 are also be used. But this ready-made gate drivers are costly affair. Reason is that they are dedicated circuits available from the manufacturer directly, and therefore the cost of buying them, using them becomes high. So we can always have a cheaper set, rather HCPL 3120 or 3140, 3170. Many such IGBT drivers which are available, ranging the cost between 85 to around 150 rupees. Very easily can be utilized, and I think most of us have used these ICs in the first few pilots or first few power electronics design very effectively. This is the 1.5 ampere device 3120, 1.5 ampere device manufactured by many companies nowadays, and work on 1.15 volts as a supply voltage and can drive the IGBT up to 1.5 ampere release. Okay. On the input side, it is optically coupled, so there is opto isolator, and therefore it can be provide isolation to the DSP connections. Okay. In any case, if you see this picture, okay, if you see these drivers compared to this IC, this is indicated directly the optically coupled IC. What can be the alternative coupling which can be possible in this isolated drivers? What are the alternative isolations mechanisms which are available? Anyone? Anyone knows?
TLP 250.
These are optically coupled, right? TLP 230, 250, these are optically coupled devices. But other than optically optical isolation, what are the alternative isolation methods?
Galvanic isolation.
Galvanic isolation in general too. How we can isolate two systems electrically? One is optical. Transformer, and third one?
Capacitors.
Yes. In principle, three isolation methods: optical, transformer based, and optically coupled. So SCPL 3120 is an optically coupled device, okay, whereas most of the others, including this device which is shown in the Infineon, which is shown here in the left hand side, this also is the transformer galvanically isolated through the transformer coupling. These are also transformer coupled devices which are there, and most of the practices you will find that transformer coupled gate drivers are there. Basically, you get a higher voltage isolation with the transformer coupled, and many other advantages are available with them. Okay, compared to the optically isolated devices which are there. Okay, other than Infineon, Avago, or Semicron, there are many other manufacturers. PI has got a really great range of gate drivers which are there. And this is UCC 21520, comparatively cheaper IC with a lot of good functionality available with it, and can be utilized. This was used in some of the products earlier, and it provides reinforced isolation. You can see that present between the two. Reinforced isolation, does it mean it means that we should have a distance of 8 mm between the power side and the DSP, the control side of the IC. Any of the components should not come into that 8 mm gap between the two. Okay. Basic isolation can be provided with a 4 mm distance between the two. Okay. So we got a lot of options available, right from ready-made boards like Semicron, Spikers, or concept boards, or Infineon boards available to us. We can design our own drivers out of all the chipsets which are available. and make it work. Because once we design it, we know what each component means to us, right? And we can select it appropriately, and we can use it for our design specification. Okay, so selecting this resistance which is coming parallel, the on resistance, off resistance, this requires a little bit of effort for working on this. Okay, so the alert or the caution out here, while working with IC-based gate driver design, care has to be taken to use all the components and their specification, especially the capacitor, the isolation voltage, temperature range, etc. into account. Okay, let us look at them. Okay, let us look at them in slightly detail. What I want to say here. In traction application, my ambient temperature requirement comes to 60 degree as the minimum requirement. Okay, if I use a commercial product design, I may work with the 40 degrees Celsius as my ambient temperature. Okay, in certain specific design, I may come out to 45 or 50 degrees Celsius as my ambient temperature. Okay, in some cases that can be force cooled, it can be water cooled, it can be naturally cooled. Okay, while working with the traction system, we work with the 60 degrees Celsius as ambient with naturally cooled system. Just imagine elevated ambient temperature with no forced air cooling, no liquid cooling. It was supposed to be naturally cooled, and you are supposed to maintain the temperature within the limits of that all the components, right? And therefore, we require to take into account the driving requirement of every device, plus the components used for all your designs which are there in the subsystems, auxiliary systems, interface circuits, your power circuits. Every component has to be rated for appropriate temperature. If you just go and check, if you just want to see this picture here, in Semitron, I can understand that this particular boards are suitable for -40 to -40 to 85 degrees Celsius, right? But if my whole design requires to have the temperature rise to go up to 125 degrees Celsius, rise in the sense total absolute temperature 125 degrees Celsius, these devices cannot be used. That means these devices will be failing in operation because of the excessive temperature rise in certain applications. So I need to be very careful selecting each one of the components. Very commonly observed, like you take a capacitor, electrolytic capacitor or any other type of capacitor, okay, they are mostly rated for 85 degrees Celsius. If you want to select as per your design for a 125 degrees Celsius operation, for example, electric vehicles, okay, we require to rate every component to be at least 105 degrees Celsius and some component up to 125 degrees Celsius. That means appropriate temperature operating range has to be taken into account while selecting each component. Similarly, as we commonly discuss the capacitors, okay, which are used. Now you can see here in these particular devices, the capacitor which are used here, the orange one, are the electrolytic capacitors, and typically they are rated up to 85 degrees Celsius. There are one which are higher than that also available, but most of them are 85 degrees Celsius. That means the major culprit in most of the designs will happen to be an electrolytic capacitor rated for 85 degrees Celsius and does not have sufficient ripple current capacity. So there you have to take care that you have to use the film capacitors, okay, which are rated for typically for 125 degrees Celsius or 105 degrees Celsius, having large ripple current capacity compared to the standard electrolytic capacitor. So if you go very fine details, okay, each one of the component which is shown here, even though they look to be only a resistor and capacitors, okay, they need to be selected appropriately. Then, for example, rather than using a CFR, carbon film resistor, I'll prefer to use a high quality MFR, the metal film resistor, because of the shock noise reduction in the resistor values which are there, right? The small things are there which takes an effort to take that care into account while designing the interface circuit or the auxiliary system program. Okay. So this is one of the circuitry which is shown here. 10 ohms resistance which shows here, the 10K resistance which comes in parallel with the gate and source also becomes an important element. If you miss out that also, you will find sometimes the spurious signal will land up here with no signal coming from microcontroller. This device may get turned on, okay, and that can be dangerous. The capacitor connected from VCC to ground, okay, the one which is shown on the this side, okay, this is supposed to pump the whole 1.5 ampere current required to be drawn from here to this device. That means it will not draw the current from your main power source, it will draw the current from this capacitor, and therefore will be large ripple current requirement coming from this capacitor. So this capacitor has to be sized appropriately, and the type to be selected also to be non-electrolytic typically in the practice. Okay. For lower end equipments or the low cost equipments, we can ignore the selection of this capacitance to an extent, but for the high quality references, we need to select the capacitance for the VCC simulation very, very carefully. This is a very simplified circuit with the SCPL 3120, and we can simply connect these small components together and can form a gate driver circuit. So my gate driver circuit can be as complex as what can be seen here in this picture of Texas Instrument, with every feature taken into account. Okay, whereas it can be as complex as what is seen in this Sniper 42 or NGR or the Sniper 32 R circuit. Okay, or it can be simple as 3120. What to choose, how to choose can be deliberated based on your application and the cost we are targeting for, right? Because 3120 based system may cost me only around 200 rupees for completing this whole stuff, okay, not more than that, and I can be ready for driving one device. So within very small cost, I can work on the driver design with effective implementation of the circuit, right? So any question from your side on these points? Okay. Gate drivers. Okay. We were talking about DSP and PWM, DSP output coming as a PWM output given to the gate driver and driving the devices, right? There are dedicated PWM ICs, which are all inclusive. That means everything is going to be there. The control system, the PWM generator, everything is going to be there as a part of it. You have to need to only connect one driver to your switch and then get things ready. Like you see 3824 very commonly used for DC-DC converter, right? So for smaller power application, DC-DC converter application, we can use the PWM ICs, which includes closed loop interfaces as well as the onboard PWM generator can be used directly for many of the applications. So you do not really worry about how should I handle the gate driver like such complex circuit. It can be done with the given circuit output. Very importantly, there are few facts which I am going to share with you regarding gate driver. Why I am stressing more on the gate driver? Because one of the critical interfaces is gate driver, right? And you are seeing witness what happens with the gate driver goes wrong. Right. In this case, there are two pictures which are indicated output. One which shows the output is driving the on resistance on switch on the upper switch is driving, gate driver is driving the switch on. That means the gate V gate or the gate supply will get connected to your gate of the main switch, external switch to this network. Right. So this is say 15 volt, and when it is turning off, okay, this charge across the capacitor of MOSFET or the IGBT need to discharge through this the MOSFET which is there in the gate driver on the lower side. Okay, I can improve the performance by draining it out faster by connecting this the return or the ground plane to a negative plane. That means my supply voltage can be V gate to ground, that is plus 15 volt to ground, okay, or it can be V gate to minus V gate 1 IC, right? In practice, typically they use 15 volts and minus 8 volt. Most of the ICs will get 15 volts and minus 8 volt as the supply voltage which is given. Before I go ahead with this, let me just take you to, if you have any question till that point, you can ask me. Let me just take you to the Sniper 32R. Okay, I'm just showing you this Sniper 32R details. Okay, the average current is 50 milliamps, but the peak current is quite large. Okay, so what we wanted to say is 2.5 microcoulomb is the maximum Q out which it can drive with this pulse, and what you are able to see, okay, is the current what it can pump into, right? So it can have 15 ampere as a current capacity. Okay, operating voltage 16 volt, and ground it can get connected to that, and output side can be to minus input. So let me just take silicon 100. Now I'm trying to match the IGBT module and our Skyper 32. Okay. Skyper IGBT module of 100 GB 12T4 was selected. Okay. So this is the specification: 1200 volts, 160 ampere peak the average current at 25 degrees Celsius. VGS is minus 20 and plus 20. Plus minus 20 volt is the maximum voltage. So it should not happen that by any fault conditions the gate voltage goes beyond 20 volts. Otherwise, your gate get damaged, right? Okay. Now let us look at this. 2G is written at minus 8 volt and plus 15 volt. That means the test condition for this particular IGBT is carried out at minus 8 volt and plus 15 volt. This is what they are recommending. It's not mandatory. I can go from plus 15 volt to 0. Okay, can be used for it. For this operation, I can have 565 nanocoulomb as my gate charge. If my Skyper 32R got lesser than this value, I cannot use Skyper 32R for this particular device. Right? For example, if this 565 was replaced by say around 3 microcoulomb as a value, I could have gone for that Skyper 32, right? And you can get the details of that. This is what the change of 2G against minus 8 volt to the VCC voltage of that 20 volts. You can get the total 2G range available volts. Depending upon your gate voltage, you can calculate this. Okay. So let us come back and quickly we'll look at how the power calculation, the rate calculations are done. They are simply taken out of it from this specification. I can get the total driver power output by taking EG into FS, the switching frequency, and EG is the energy which is required to be delivered. So QG is the one which I get from the device specification, and operating voltage for the gate driver will be minus 8 volt to say plus 15 volt. This is my decision, suppose. Then I can take VGS on, VG on to be plus 15 and VG off to be minus 8 volt. So total differential will be 23 volts for that reason, and multiply with the QG will give me total energy to be delivered. Okay, multiplying that with the FS will give me the total power output, and corresponding to that I can get the gate current which is required. From the gate current, I can calculate my RG on, which is required to be used for my circuit. So this is fairly simple calculation which can be used, and with that we can do the calculation of the RGS on total, right? So RG on and RG off are calculated based on your the current which is taken for the gate driver. So gate driver interfaces gives us one important thing to be noted here, that it requires to have appropriate gate drive voltage selection. Higher the gate drive voltage, RDS on will be lesser. Naturally, your losses will be lesser. Okay, but voltages are limited to plus minus 20 volts, so I cannot go beyond 20. So therefore, typical voltage range for any gate driver will be from plus 15 to plus 18, not beyond. Okay. So this is how these things work. Gate driver also controls the slew rate. If my slew rate is too slow, my losses will be more. This is what we have checked out in the beginning. If my slew rate is very fast, I'll get the ringing effect in my videos. This is also not desired, right? And gate driver also provides a DSAT protection. That means in any fault condition, if your leg module goes to a short circuit condition, the voltage across collector, emitter, or drain and source will rise beyond a certain value, and that can be an indication for gate driver circuit that there is something wrong which has happened, and it will take out the gate pulse out of the switches, and it will prevent that particular damage to happen. So that DSAT protection also is a part of gate driver circuit. So when you select your gate driver, externally available, that means available off the shelf, or if you design your own, you should have all these things taken into account while designing. Okay, these are the various isolation methods which are there. Isolation types, I'll say: functional isolation, basic isolation, supplementary isolation, double galvanic isolation, reinforced isolation. Okay, very well defined in the IC. You can check it out more details from there. I want to just cover the other circuits here also. So I'm just keeping this part as of now. We can take up if necessary in our discussion and the question answer session. So we, as a company, we have decided to work with the Infineon gate driver circuit. This is the circuit which we have designed. Because we wanted to design 100 kilowatt of inverter for our application. It was not sufficient that the gate driver can drive the circuit directly. We have used the booster circuit. So there's an additional booster circuit left, just like an inverter. You can see that it will happen to be there. It basically allows the current boosting effect. Okay. So coming from 2 ampere capacity to almost like a 35 ampere capacity, we have used this circuitry as a booster for that. So this whole circuitry is capable of handling 150 watt of peak power at 35 ampere and can deliver plus 50 minus 8 volt gate current. This has been designed and this is how we fabricated. You can see that these are all 120 ampere N channel and P channel MOSFETs which are used. The film capacitors which are used to power up the current to each one of these MOSFETs. This is 280 Infineon gate driver circuit, and these are designed locally in the lab. Okay. Okay. You may have some questions to talk about, but I'll just quickly cover these few other aspects. Not going to be more than 15 minutes or so. We'll take question answers later. Okay. So current and voltage sensors are another thing which are required to be appropriately selected. And this picture shows that on the left hand side we got a different types of current sensors. The one on this lower side, one with the vertical and horizontal profile, are 1000 ampere current sensors, all effect sensor, LEM sensors, LEM. Okay, this also is circular cross section used for the circular conductor. This is used for the bus bar, 1000 ampere. This is 200 ampere current sensor, Hall effect sensor, and this is the high frequency core type current sensor, much cheaper. And compared to that, there is small IC, ACS 712, 714, Hall effects, IC based current sensors, small PCB you can see here. So these are the current sensors types which are shown. On the right hand side, I just taken an indicative voltage, AC voltage PTs which are used, okay, with appropriate surge arresters used for that, and then after attenuation, it is given to the DSP for further sensing. Okay. So here, once you get the output from your Hall effect sensor, I require to appropriately process it. Okay. There has to be filters. Okay, and there has to be amplification. Okay, because the current is going to vary from 0 to almost like 1000 ampere in certain cases. Okay, where the current voltage variation in the output side will be in the range of 0 to 4 volts maximum. Okay, for a very low range, I should have appropriate amplification and the filtering also should come in picture. So this is the amplifier cum filter which has been used, and there's a clamping, Zener clamping which is done to prevent any voltage more than 3.3 volt to be clamped before giving it to the microcontroller. Okay, you can increase the sensitivity by simply winding the number of turns in that control this current sensors. By having multiple turns, I can increase the sensitivity of this sensors. Okay, you can see that here also I require supplies minus 1.6 volt for elevating the voltage to the AC side and to the microcontroller directly. Okay, current sensors like ACS 723, ACS 714, there are many such type, but these are limited to 80 kilohertz of bandwidth and suitable for a very small application, much cheaper. I see this is hardly 80 rupees or so, whereas this one will cost you around 800 to 850 rupees, whereas this 1000 ampere, 400 ampere in nominal was costing us around 5000 rupees a piece. Okay. So naturally, people will go for this for a low cost application, very easily available in the market and suitable for simple applications in the system. Okay. Now, just to have comparison, this has been taken from a book, Digital Signal Processing for Control Circuits, only for the sake of discussion. I can sense the current through a transformer, which was like a high frequency transformer. You can use. Sensing rays are very commonly used. In electric vehicles, basically they use shunt resistance to minimize the cost. Okay, sensing resistance with a common mode amplifier also are common. Hall effect sensors will come in two types: open loop and closed loop type. Okay, open loop types are basically low accuracy compared to closed loop type, and the bandwidth of the closed loop is much higher than the open loop type, and actually the cost will differ in both the cases. Okay. You can just identify the sensing racer for the same 1000 ampere. We have purchased at around 1,500 rupees, whereas that for the Hall effect sensor we have spent around 5,000 rupees. The difference of almost 3,500 was there. And actually, if you use a multiple such sensor, the cost will increase drastically. Okay, so you have to suitably select all the sensors in your application. Voltage sensing typically done with so this is EABC, the AC voltages which are there. DC voltage I can simply attenuate and use it. In AC voltage I can use with isolation amplifier. Just delete this. Okay, this is differential voltage by having high impedance coming into picture. There is no isolation. You can see this, right? In this case, phase A, phase B, phase C, three-phase AC voltage have been connected directly to this high resistance network, ladder network, and attenuated substantially. And then it is given to the amplifiers directly. There is no isolation coming into picture. After appropriate filtering and amplification with the clamping diodes, it is connected to the micro input. These are without isolation. Okay, in some cases, in low-cost application, I can always use non-isolated interfaces. The high resistance impedance network itself will act like a isolation barrier for the high voltage side and the low voltage side. So this is the picture of that. You can see all the resistors are basically the MFR resistors which are used and standard op-amps which have been used in this case. Okay, for DC applications, we can use simple attenuated network, sample the both side voltages on that, again use the isolation amplifier and an amplifier followed by that, and give it to the DSP. Very standard circuitry, which are, if you refer to Texas Instrument, possibly you can find all these details very easily. And challenge will be like, what is the input impedance, what you are going to face it for this amplifier. Accordingly, you have to select the R1, R2, and R sense values. Otherwise, there will be a loading effect coming into picture, and it will sense the wrong voltage measurement. Okay, and therefore there is a care to be taken. Okay, so we have designed our boards with isolation amplifier with AMC 1311. Okay, these have been AMC 1311 is a very interesting IC to work with. These have been designed to sense the output current, output voltages, DC voltage, PV current, temperature, everything is there on the single board, and isolated interfaces are available on this board for us. Okay, this has been designed by us and been fabricated. So AMC 1311 provides 5 kV isolation voltage for 1 minute stand, and is capable of working with -40°C to +125°C. Okay, I was mentioning to you that we have to be very careful at what application or for what application, what temperature range you are designing. So be careful in selecting your component suitably for that. Okay, and so similarly in that case, we have selected the standard op-amps other than the isolation amplifiers, also of the same category, -40 to +145°C operation, and remaining details are also there. So this design is based on the AMC 1311 to 377 op-amps. Okay. So these are the circuits which are used in voltage and current sensing, and depending upon the cost consideration, the kind of simplicity you want to have it, you can really make the designs as per your requirement. And there is no hard and fast rule. Second year engineering, we learned the subject of basic electronics, electron devices circuits, analog and digital circuits. So everything comes from there. In fact, to share with you, when I was working with Tesla drive, okay, which was there in our lab, Tesla drive, which was designed for RAV4 hybrid electric vehicle, okay, which was designed for 110 kilowatt, 115 kilowatt of drive, it was there. The circuitry which was studied, which was used in the whole drive, was literally from the textbook. Okay, that means there was no fancy circuit topologies which was used. Standard circuitry, standard concepts, standard things which are learned from the various subjects were adapted, and we know the success of Tesla models in the world as of now. So rather than working with a very complex topology, very complex circuitry, it is very easy to start with very simple thing and make it work. Once you get a confidence working with this circuit, I think working with a very complex circuit is not going to be a difficult task for you. Lastly, I will deal with communication ports. These are very essential. We will be talking about CAN communication only and RS-485. These are very commonly available in most of the electrical power electronics devices. CAN stands for Control Area Network, having 1 Mbps as a maximum data speed. Okay, and very popular in vehicular application. But in power system, power electronics, now it is becoming a mandatory communication interface. So here you can see that I can design a CAN with isolation and a CAN without isolation. So CAN with isolation, we use ISO 1050, which basically represents a transmitter and receiver segment like this. Is a CAN HL pair, CAN HL bus will be there. On the left hand side, you can find it out and interface with the DSP, the RSP and TXP. With the RS and TX pin of the DSP component, right? So this interface gives us an opportunity to work with the CAN from one particular unit, transfer the data at 1 Mbps, and get the data transfer to another system very easily. And I can really send my data of voltage, current samples, status, literally everything what I can capture on my power system from my system to any other remote system on the CAN bus and without having any of the noise interference coming to picture for the field. Okay. Quite interesting protocol it is, and once you get habituated using a CAN, okay, I feel like you will not prefer to use any other communication port for your conference. That's how I feel. So there can be other alternatives also can be tried. RS-485 was popular and in the older devices and still going to be a part of most of the new devices with RS-485 and CAN bus. Both ports are available on equipment, and therefore RS-485 also can be utilized. In the similar fashion it works, right? RS-485 also has got advantage to work with high frequency. Almost 2.5 Mbps data can be transferred, data rate. And it is basically twisted pair cable coupling can be available. Now just imagine RE and D will be interfaced with the DSP, and the other side will be having the cable coupling connecting from one point to another point, and then again on that board we will receive the data on the DSP side. So the communication link is going to be the transceiver and on the transmitter side, and the receiver, transceiver on the receiver side. So these are not very commonly available in other kind of DSP processors. Okay. I think I missed out one particular thing. I hope you must have seen the DSP board earlier in the earlier two sessions. Okay, TMS 320 28379T, okay, which is nowadays used very commonly. This particular board is available from Texas Instruments at much cheaper cost, and useful for most of the research applications. Only limitation what I can see is that the connectivity from power electronics to DSP and DSP to P or external world is not available on that board. You have to create your own board for that reason. Okay, you have to create all the interfaces and use them. So here is the board which we designed, and this is also a board which is basically uses the TMS 320 379T. It also can adapt. This is a dual core processor against which you can have a single core processor also. On board, all the signal processing circuits are there. On board, the driver compatible, gate driver compatible PWM outputs are there. There are the transceivers used for the various communication protocols. There are programming interface, JTAG interface is available. Real-time clock is available for that. We also got an onboard power supply is available, right from 1.2 volts for the core, 3.3 volt for peripheral, and 5 volt for generic op-amp based circuits which are there. And what we require is only 15 volts input for the from a SMPS to go into this particular port. That's all. A single pin would supply with this section to give power to all the complete board out here. These are the driver boards which I discussed earlier. It comes with almost everything what we require for the directly driving our P system. Okay, this is a closer look. Why we decided to go for our own board design? Because ultimately working with a experimental board or rather educational kit, okay, it's always going to limit yourself for the product kind of a design, and therefore if you have your own design available, this can become flexible for you and become handy to use in most of the application for the interfaces and things. It's very easy to really construct. To summarize everything, the one which we have tested in our setup out there, okay, these are the applications, these are the results which we got from one of the applications that is discussed. SV PWM output with phase output, the gate driver output which has been taken out, the MPPT tracking with the PN mode, then inverter output, starting cramping of motor current and corresponding voltage changes. Everything is there out here. And this is how we recorded that on our power quality analyzer to measure the output of the inverter after the filter. Okay. I had taken everything together. I did not give any chance to ask questions now in the later part of my presentation. I can open up this session now for the discussion or any queries, any questions you want to. Okay, so thank you very much for patience listening, and that's all from my side as of now for this 1.5 hour discussion. I still have almost 15 to 20 minutes to go for it. I can take any other details in more in the discussion and address some of the queries what you can have. Okay, I can pick up some of the questions which are listed in.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Participants, if you have any further questions, please feel free to ask.
Okay, what selection criteria are considered while choosing driver IC? Okay. While working with the driver IC, actually what we need to work on is assuming that I got a power devices selected, right? The power devices I can choose from many manufacturers. There are n number of manufacturers available to us, and based on your experience, your understanding, or your contact, right, I can make choice of one of them. For example, we have commonly used Infineon or Semicron as the two suppliers mainly, and we have worked with their devices. So naturally, for every device manufacturer, there will be a portal available to you for selecting a suitable gate driver. Okay, that means you select their switches. There will be next thing what you need to go is to select their gate driver. So typically what is done is that I select a power device, and from the same group or same manufacturer I select the gate drivers, because typically they are matched and mapped to your application. But if I want to differ from that selection, and these are very well documented things which are available on each one of the manufacturer code, I can see if you are interested, right? If I don't want to really match them there and there itself, I want to have my own driver, okay, and the switches from this particular manufacturer allowed, okay, or a driver from one manufacturer. For example, I can take a driver from Semicron and I can use the IGBTs from Infineon, possible. The things to be matched out here is that I can take the charge, gate charge, which is specified, the operating frequency I'm going to work with, okay, the total amount of maximum current the gate can take into account. There are certain specifications which are given corresponding to the gate into the power devices specifications. I'll take that and I'll see which are the ICs which are matching with them. Every IC will be having a limitation of the maximum current it can handle or pump. Okay, it can handle the frequency, it can handle the isolation voltage between that. Okay, if it is galvanically isolated, and the charge, the gate charge, what it can handle. So even if this 3 or 4 criteria, if you are able to match with each other, okay, if they found to be suitable, I can choose that IC for that application. Okay, but best way is that match the power device with the gate driver device of the same manufacturer. It becomes easy because it has been pre-exercise. I will say they already carry out this exercise to match them appropriately. Right? It becomes easy for a starting condition that somebody is going to try it out first time can take it up directly. Okay. Reason for minus 8 volt. Actually, we can go up to minus 20 volt. Okay, but the total range, if you look at it, typically most of the devices will be specified against minus 8 to plus 15. So minus 8 is typically available, and minus 8 is minus 8 volts, which is given to the negative of your gate drive. That means it is going to take out the charge across the gate to be depleted very fast. Okay, the minus 8 volt is more than sufficient. In fact, minus 6 volt to minus 7 volt also is being utilized. Okay, is more than sufficient for taking out the drive, the charge across the capacitor very quickly and sufficient enough. If you go beyond that, in some cases the net voltage change is going to be much larger and can cause a trouble in your circuit. So minus 7 to minus 8 volt is the optimum design. Most of the manufacturers recommend that. Okay, there are practical limitations going beyond that. We are tried out with minus 4 also, we are tried out with minus 10 also, but what we found is minus 7 in our case was most suitable. Is there any software on which performance of gate driver can be tested? As such now, what you can simply do is that take a device and connect it to gate driver and see how it performs. Very excellent insights can be obtained, and that's what I shared with you, that when we really work with the various drivers, literally these drivers are available in the lab, and see their performance, you can see the difference between the performance of your power electronic system. Okay, so rather than banking only on the softwares, I prefer that somebody can try it on the hardware system directly. Nowadays, SIC based devices are coming as a replacement for IGBTs, especially this. To an extent, luckily, most of the drivers are suitable for SICs, and SICs are much more robust devices and really can work miraculously for our applications, and we are expecting that cost of SIC should come down very quickly. As I said that most of the manufacturers now are looking at it, if the gate drivers are designed, they'll be suitably can be modified to work with SIC without major modifications. So they can be really mapped into the SIC devices directly. Okay. Any other questions other than what is written here? I think I addressed most of them. Any other live questions somebody wants to ask? Nothing very complex covered. Only thing what we learned out of our explanation, what we seen in the lab is covered. But let me tell you that quite interesting things. Give weightage to these smaller circuits along with your power circuit. This is what I'm message I want to do. DSP is becoming robust and robust. In fact, with the board which we are shown here, okay, this has been designed. This is the 4-layer board which we designed in the lab. Okay, got it fabricated from outside and assembled within the lab again. And the first attempt was failure for us, but third attempt, in fact, first 2 attempts were failure, and third attempt this board has become successful. Now we got our own board to work with. Literally every aspect of the design is taken into account. So we dealt right from second year engineering subject to the final year PG subjects also together in the whole board. Okay. So team worked really hard, and this is not the outcome of our efforts. And since all the designs which have been indicated here are part and parcel of the designs which are done in the lab, actually that exposure experience was great for us. We failed miserably in many cases, but the failure experience was really additive, and to an extent we have stabilized our designs nowadays. I feel like if there are no questions, yes. If there are questions, I can still address it, or that's all from my side. Anyone? Okay, if no questions, I'd like to thank Dr. Mini Rajiv, Dr. Mini N, and all the team members of the SFDP organization for making it possible for me to share this experience that I gained with every one of you. And I also felt good. And thank you very much for your questions. Any questions, any queries later on, if you want to put it on, you can try writing a mail to me, otherwise call me directly. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir, for giving us a very detailed insight about the selection of interface circuits between DSP and power electronic systems. Sir, it was really interesting to know the importance of gate driver circuit, even though it looks very simple, and the significance of selecting the right parameters for the circuit with difficulties faced during the importance of solar PV for the difficulties faced during the implementation of solar PV-based water pump controller. The session helped me to understand various gate driver circuits, voltage and current circuits, sensor circuits available in the market, and the communication ports such as CAN and RS485, and the factors to be taken care of during their selection and implementation. Thank you once again, sir, for this insightful session on the interfacing between DSP and power electronic systems. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Attendance, Vinny? No.
Yeah, I shared the attendance.
No, download it.
Yeah, I will now download again because basically I'm downloading 2 times.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am, it's downloaded.
This separate feedback link not to fill, no? Not to filter required, no?
Not necessary.
Yeah, the feedback link is provided in this chat box, and it will be available even in the Teams general session also.
Can you share in the WhatsApp group? I'm not able to find it.
Sir, you are using mobile?
Yes, ma'am.
Let me see, sir. Yeah, I think I can share that thing again in the Teams once again. In the general section, I will put it directly.
In the post session?
Yeah, in the post section. As a new conversation, I will put. Yeah, 1 minute. I will just put now. Once again. Yeah. Is it available now, sir? Is it available, sir? The post section.
Oh, no, ma'am. I'm not able to find it.
Yeah.
Sorry for that.
Ma'am, what to do, ma'am? Mini, ma'am?
It is okay. It is okay, Vinny. It is okay. We are just taking an additional feedback only, no?
Yeah. Sir, anyway, we have taken the attendance. Downloaded the attendance. Thank you, sir.
Next session, about next session.
Yeah, sorry. Tomorrow's session, as usual, it will start at 9:15, and the links will be provided similar to the style which we have done today. That is, the tomorrow sessions will be section 7, 8, and 9. Morning 2 sessions and afternoon 3rd session. And separate links will be provided for each session.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.